What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 74 of Sales Stories in Real Life. I'm your host, Alex Bruschi, and this is the show where professional salespeople share their stories about memorable buying experiences. Today, we've got none other than Ashley Beck Cuellar. She was in auto direct mail ads in the automotive industry for 17 years, and she is now the founder of Sales Spark and hosts social selling workshops for sales teams. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank
Typically, as
you.
you
Thank
know,
you.
we focus on specific memorable buying experiences.
hmm
Recently, we've been a little bit more flexible with that, and we're going to continue that trend today, especially with you, who I would consider a community aficionado. We're going to talk a little bit about how folks can be more buyer centric
Yeah.
community.
Yeah. Love
Tell me
that.
your thoughts on that.
Totally love that.
What's up, everybody? Whether you're new here or a seasoned listener, please drop a subscribe and like on your favorite streaming platform, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast. Super helpful for getting the show out to more people. And if you yourself have ever wanted to start your own podcast, send me a DM on LinkedIn, and in just 2 to 3 hours per week, I can help you to start and maintain your own podcast. Make your voice heard and start a podcast today. Now, back to the conversation.
Totally love that. Well, so LinkedIn is the ultimate buyer centric community. You know what I mean? We are all here to buy and sell for the most part, even if it's selling ourselves, to get a job, you know what I mean? Like to put yourself out there for a job. That's what we're all doing. And I think that people come to LinkedIn and they think that it's just a job board and they think my customers aren't here. But really, if you just start to lean into the community and you start to have relationships, have conversations, you realize that your buyers are there, maybe in a roundabout way, but they're there. And you're leaning into your community to find the right buyers rather than flooding inboxes, I guess, trying to find the right buyers that way with like a pray and spray situation. You're definitely intentionally building relationships and finding those things to plug them in.
Before we get started, I want to introduce you to Lead Feeder. We all know the struggle of identifying website visitors and turning them into valuable leads. Imagine having the power to identify companies visiting your website, track their behavior in real time, and seamlessly integrate it all into your CRM. With customizable notifications, lead scoring, and GDPR compliance, Leadfeeder is changing the lead generation game. Head over to leadfeeder.com, LEADFEEDER.com for a demo today. Now, back to the conversation. Definitely. And I mean, you have hit the platform by storm. I know that Riley introduced us. Was that even a year ago, or that was like less
Yeah,
than
probably about that.
about a year ago? I mean, feels like you've been on the platform for ages. So why don't you kind of like walk us through like how did this all get started for you, right? Like you were obviously in one role at one company for a very long time. So you kind of fit the mold of like, hey, my prospects aren't on LinkedIn, right? A lot of them are in companies that don't really incentivize it or whatever the case may be. So why don't you
Yeah.
kind of walk us through like how did you kind of get started? How did things sort of accelerate for you? Like what did your path look like? Because obviously, again, you've come a long way in a very short time.
Yeah, I mean it was so it's funny that we bring this up because Liam Darmody posted today something about how you can find what your like LinkedIn member number is. Like what number of LinkedIn person you were. I was like 20 million and some change. So like but I have had profiles since 2008, February of 2008. Did not really start using the platform until about October of last year, because I knew that I was either going to be rebuilding one side of the business at the company that I was with, or I was going to be leaving the company and trying to decide what to do next. And so I kind of just and I the strategy that I had been taught with LinkedIn in the past was what I call swarm. And it's not content creating, it's not thought leadership, it's not any of that. It's I want to work with Joe Schmo dealership. And so I'm going to look them up on LinkedIn and then connect with every single employee that I can find that has ever had anything to do with them. And that's just not an effective strategy, really.
Right.
So I started to, I think I started the way everybody starts. I like reposted things first It's like, I'm going to be incognito and just kind of repost. And then I started to comment a little more. I also took the strategy of like, instead of trying to find car dealers all the time, I just started to try to find people that I liked and that were nice and that had interests similar to mine.
Right.
And like you already mentioned, Riley was an early find for me. And I was like, okay, anybody that has chubby unicorn next to their name is my friend. And so I just, started commenting maybe on his things. And I don't even know how it ended up that we became friends, but he basically within, I don't know, 3 weeks of knowing me or so, convinced me to come to Tampa to Melissa's boat networking situation, which was so much fun, but so outside the box for me,
Yeah.
like not something I would have done. And I did it with a very open mindset because I still didn't know, am I staying in the auto business? Am I leaving the auto business? Like you kind of can't ever leave the auto business when you've been there for almost 20 years. So, but then networking with software people, and learning a little bit more about that side of the world, even though I had sold software, but not really been in that space. So it started like that. And then I just, like you said, I lean into connecting people. I like to learn about people and then know who I can connect them with. Like if I go talk to somebody else, kind of like I do with you, if I talk to somebody and they're like, I've been thinking about a podcast. Like, what do you think? I'm like, well, I happen to know somebody. I mean, and that's so fun. That's the best part of it. And so it just kind of became an entertaining way to grow my network and become friends with so many people. So that's kind of the journey. And then it kind of turned out that the engagement was there and people feel heard by things that I say. So I keep saying them.
Well, I think you do a great job of staying true to yourself and like not being something that you're not. And I think you kind of just like hit the nail on the head. Like you're just a genuine connector of humans. And I think people like that like are always gonna find a way to succeed in some way, shape, and form. And I can attest, like you are just fantastic connector and refer. And speaking of, you said something pre-show that really, really stood out to me. I'm gonna ask that question in a second. First, I'm going to start by asking, you kind of hit on a couple points there. Like a lot of folks think their prospects aren't on LinkedIn, and maybe their prospects actually aren't on LinkedIn, but I think there's maybe like a little more nuance there as to just,
Yeah.
hey, my prospects aren't on LinkedIn, so I'm not going to spend time on LinkedIn whatsoever. What would you say to those kind of folks that they say, hey, it's not worth me doing anything on LinkedIn or networking because my prospects aren't on LinkedIn? What would you say to those folks?
So the first answer to that is, regardless of all of that, learning to write and communicate and be a part of the LinkedIn community is so good for your confidence and for your knowledge and for your like expert knowledge of your industry, to cultivate in yourself. I left a really teeny tiny box, an automotive direct mail expert. There are not very many of us out there. And so to like kind of start to peel those things out of that box and learn what I really enjoy, writing on LinkedIn helped me do that. And it helped me see what resonated with people and what expertise I really did have in that field. And so that is the thing that I would encourage about it, is just for your own knowledge base and comfort level with communicating about what you do. It's a great way to do that. But also, I have all these friends who know what I do. And so even if my direct person is not looking at my face on LinkedIn right now, somebody that knows them maybe is. And it's funny, I actually said when I left my job, I posted on the other social medias also because I figured I might as well tell those humans what I'm doing. And I said, the only ask that I have of my community is if you talk to somebody and you just think, oh my God, you need to know Ashley, connect me to that person, whether it has anything to do with the job or not. If they feel like the energy is right, then connect us. So, I mean, I think that is part of where people have to like kind of let go of the fact that, I mean, like, I could sit and just cold DM car dealerships all day long if I wanted to for direct mail.
Right.
But that doesn't feel intentional and it doesn't feel Like it's just like I'm only DMing you because you're a car dealer and I want to ask you if you do direct mail, not because I have any idea or inkling that you might want the service or need the service or, I don't know.
I mean, to be honest, I really don't know how effective of a strategy it is either. I mean, we talk about like spray and pray over email. I don't know that spraying and praying on LinkedIn is much better than spraying and praying over
Right.
email. So to your point, I mean, this is the question I was excited to ask because you told me this pre-show and my eyes just kind of like lit up. You recently made a meeting that was 5 dots away, like 5 people away. It
Yeah.
was like a chain of one person to one person to one person to one person, one person, and then you
Yep.
ended up making a meeting from it. Can you like
Yeah.
walk us through that? I think that would really kind of accentuate your previous point home.
Yeah.
Like, my buyers aren't on here. What should
Right. And I think that it also will illustrate that like the people that I ended up getting to, they're not super active on LinkedIn. So it was the active person that pulled me into the people who are less active. So my friend Jason Barnaby, he is a speaker, Firestarter is his company. He's a great friend of mine. He lives here locally. And he introduced me to a man named Josh Klein, who is also local here in Indianapolis. And this was probably like 6 months ago, maybe. And the only reason that he introduced me to Josh is because Josh has a company called Ground Game that has to do with camper vans. And everybody knows that I want to own it's like a dream. Someday LinkedIn is going to sponsor a camper van for me to drive around.
we're
Anyway,
manifesting it.
so that's why he connected me to Josh. Josh and I have a phone call. Great guy. We hit it off and just kind of shared what we do. And he was like, I'm getting ready to start this co-working community called Revelry for young salespeople who are in revenue producing positions, who are remote workers and want a community to be part of. And he was like, we're going to do some lunch and learns. I would love to have you come speak about social selling. So I came and did that. It was great. Like, I love baby salespeople. They're so adorable and just like eat it all up. And so I did that for him. And then as I was talking, he was like, oh man, you should know Matt Baggett. And I was like, oh, I don't know him. And he was like, I'm going to connect you guys. So he connects me to Matt. Matt happens to be the son of Chris Baggett, who was the CMO of Exact Target before it was acquired by Salesforce. So he's kind of like indie like tech legend. And I had no idea until I like looked like later. I looked Matt up after we had lunch and I was like, oh, I had no clue. So Matt introduced me to John Cantor, who is the VP of franchise development, VP of franchise development for a company called Cluster Truck. Everybody loves that Cluster Truck. It
Hilarious.
is basically like a kitchen, like a restaurant kitchen, and they do delivery. You don't like eat at the restaurant, you just order delivery and they cook your order and bring it to you.
Yeah.
So they have 300 drivers that they need to, check their car insurance on a regular basis. And so the product that I'm selling with Motives does that. But that took like 4 months to get to, and it was 4 dots away. And now John, dot number 5 is that John is also going to connect us with Empower Delivery, which is Chris's new company that is like basically a tech stack for restaurants to learn delivery and like how to organize their drivers and things like that. So it's great meetings that are leading to great places that are not on LinkedIn. I got it from my LinkedIn connection that moved
Yeah.
me through this that way. I mean, that's what I'm talking about though. That is the kind of networking that if you're not open to anything, if you're not open to like the universe's signs for you and what they're feeding you, then you'll miss it. If you're only looking for car dealerships and you're only looking for exactly what your ICP looks like, you'll miss out on all kinds of things.
I love that story so much. I think it just hits home every single point that you made previously. And I think like all I can think of while you're saying all of this is like you're doing things that don't necessarily scale, right? It's like you may have 10 coffee chats with people and like 9 of them you never speak to again, right? And that's not a good thing. That's not a bad thing, right? Like you know those people,
Yeah.
but like that one that leads to another one, that leads to another one, that leads to another one. And then all of a sudden you're like finding yourself in these like huge opportunities. You're coming in warm, like you know
Yeah.
that they desperately need something that you're selling. So I think that's just kind of like a really cool way to just like stress how important it is to just have a community, right? Like a community
Yeah.
doesn't scale, but a community is just ever bearing fruit is
Oh,
what how I would
absolutely.
describe
Well,
it.
And I think Carrie Lynn, KL Shaw.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So KL, never in a million, I don't know. Carrie Lynn and I've been connected on LinkedIn for quite a while.
Yeah.
I had no idea that she was the former director of HR for BMW USA and that her husband is the head of like sales training. Well, that's surely going to be a good connection somewhere down the road. But it's like unless you have those conversations, unless you're like actively building relationships with people and having coffee chats, even if you participate on LinkedIn, you might not know that because even though KL and I are friends, I know salary bump. I know what she does now. I haven't gone and like looked at all her work experience to see where her connections are.
Right.
So, if you just show up how you are, people will pull out their own connections sometimes and be like, oh, hey, did you know that I was da 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 da? And then there's a great connection there.
It, one more analogy that just popped in my head. It's almost like a garden, right? It's like if you just go and plant a
Yes.
ton of seeds and you water
Yes.
all of them, like you're probably going to end up with a garden. If you're going to plant like one seed at a time and like excessively water it and like watch it every day, like you're probably not going to have much of a garden, right? Like maybe you're going to have like two plants. Okay, I don't know. I thought that was a funny analogy. Anyways, quick gear shift because
Yeah.
I think your background is really fascinating and I think a lot of people can relate to being at a company for a very long time. I mean, 17 years. Not only that, but it was like smaller company,
Yeah.
niche offering, right? Like,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to folks that are maybe in a similar position? Whether it's like they work in a really niche industry and they want to kind of expand their horizons. Maybe they've worked at a small company for quite a while and they're thinking maybe it's time for something new, but you just kind of become so used to your environment and it feels very hard to leave. What kind of advice would you give to those folks?
So I hit a point. I said the words to somebody that my job was sucking my soul. And I was like, okay, those are pretty strong words. Maybe we should change the direction of things.
Yeah.
And so if you are having feelings like that and wanting to change direction, I cannot encourage you enough to lean into the LinkedIn platform and to just let your community. When I showed up originally, I wasn't looking for any clients really. I was just looking to build relationships and to learn more about other people and to learn more about what was out there. I mean, if you've done the same thing for so long in a super small company, I mean, you have no idea what's out there. And also, PS, you don't have to work a 9 to 5. You can do currently, like you said, I have Sales Spark and I do workshops for social selling. I'm also working for a company selling a product because I believe in it so much that it's going to be such a there's like 8 people in the company right now.
Yeah.
Um, but that's another stream of income. And then I teach yoga. That's not really a form of income, but that's the other thing that I tell people all the time. Don't look at LinkedIn as straight business because you will lose connections that could be amazing connections. The number of people that I connect with over yoga that I never would have found if it wasn't for yoga on this platform for me talking about, I mean, there's not a whole lot of people talking about yoga on LinkedIn. So, but people do there are people who connect with that. So I tell people all the time, if you are just if you're in a niche, definitely still talk about that because it's important, but talk about personal life, talk about the personal things, talk about the things you love, talk about what like what you like to do when you're not at work. I know that it's so scary for people to talk about personal vulnerable things and what you do outside the office on LinkedIn,
Yep.
but that is a lot of times. Another great example, Donnie Boyven. I don't know if you're connected to him. Love
Yep.
that man.
Yep.
God, he's funny. He started posting his baby goats on Sundays. Baby Goat Sunday. It's like the cutest thing ever. I'll show up for it every Sunday. He got clients from it and he was like so shocked that he had gotten a client from Baby Goat Sunday. And I'm like, no, friend, that is what people show up for. And then they may not, it's not like they're remembering the baby goats and they're like, oh, I definitely want to have that networking guy because he has baby goats. No, it's they think they need a networking guy. And then they're like, oh, I remember the goats. The goat guy was a networking guy. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So you have to bring your personality to the platform and your all of the things. And it just ends up working out. If you let
I
let the
sorry, finish.
serendipity of it take over.
Sorry, I'm like itching to jump in here because this is I think like where like I really get very passionate about this is I think like
Yes.
people think that they need to be so over polished.
Ugh.
They have to talk about sales and they have to talk about B2B takeaway and everything needs to be I proposed to my fiance and here's what I learned about B2B sales. Like, just like create that extra layer of humanity around yourself. Like
Yeah.
post your goats. Post. I know one of the things that drew me to you outside of being introduced to from Riley is like the breath work. Like you'll do breath work
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, and like you said, talk about yoga on LinkedIn. And I think I don't say this in a mean way. I want to open somebody's mind. Is like there are some people who it's like I know what they're going to post before they even click post, and
Yeah.
it becomes so predictable and it's just kind of the same thing over and over and over again. The first year I followed you, it was great. I enjoyed it, but now it's just kind of like we're on a treadmill and I'm like seeing the same
Mhm.
posts over and over again. And I'm so opposite that I take pride in like I almost don't want anyone to know what my next post is going to be, right? Like, sure, I'm
Yeah.
going to make a podcast episode one, excuse me, a post promoting my podcast every once or 2 weeks. But outside of that, like it could be something sales related, it could be something travel related, could be something food related, could be something golden retriever related, right? Like I think that just like deepens the connection
Yes.
and deepens the trust, right? I think that for me is what LinkedIn is. It is
Yep.
trust,
Yep.
reliability, and humanity at
Yep.
scale, if you will. I know humanity at scale sounds kind of like a weird phrase. What advice would you give to the folks that they just can't take that next step, like even though maybe they see the vision, it's just like I just can't because of XYZ. Like what would you tell those folks to maybe kind of help them break out of their B2B shell?
So the first thing that I did when I was trying to do this myself was I opened my phone and I opened my Photos app and I like scrolled through my Photos app and I kind of just like made myself aware of what I was seeing the most, right? Well, obviously, it's my daughter. I saw the most of my daughter. And Lennon has become kind of a thing on LinkedIn. I mean, like people know who Lennon is because Lennon participates in my videos and she shows up in stories and things like that. And so find something that you know so intimately that like this is funny. I posted this once and I posed this question once in a post. What is something that you could talk about for 5 minutes without stopping, without prep? Pick that thing and then write a post about that and purposely try not to tie it to business.
Right.
Purposely try just to like post that thing and make it be. I mean, trust me, there are posts where I have been like, I don't know if I'm going to hit post on this or not. And then I do, and it's fine. It's never terrible. And
Right.
that's the thing that I think everybody thinks that there are so many people watching you on LinkedIn. And that's what's really hard at first is like, everyone's watching me. Literally, no one is watching you yet.
They don't
Like,
care. They don't
no,
care.
no one cares at all. Like definitely at first, especially nobody's looking. So
They don't
just
give a shit. They
right
really don't.
at the beginning, throw all the shit at the wall that you can, and like get it out. Like get to
Right.
where you're in a groove and it works.
Yeah.
And that's but that is the true like um task that I do with a lot of people is I'm like, look at your phone, see what you post the most. Cause like my friend Matt goes fishing all the time. I'm like, post something about fishing, dude. And
Right.
don't tie it to business for the love of God. Just leave it about fishing. So those kinds of things. And I know it's hard to do because LinkedIn has always been such a business platform. But also the other thing I would recommend is find other people who are posting that way and just follow them for a little while. Like because I think just the vein of demographic that I'm in, like I'm in sales, I'm kind of a content creator in sales, I'm a coach. So Holly Crawshaw and Darren McKee have been two people that when they post, I feel like they're talking directly to me and being like, you are not doing this thing that you know you should be doing. And so follow people like that
Yeah.
because it pushes you and it makes you want to do things differently. But also, like you said, I think sometimes in the creator world, like too much, it's like post at 8 a.m. every single day. Make sure it looks like this. Da, da, da. I cannot do that. Alex, God love me. It will never happen. It just won't. I'm never that organized. And I don't feel like I would struggle to write something the day before or the day before, sometimes I do, but like 7 days before.
Right.
And then still have that emotion. What if I don't feel like that 7 days from now? I think maybe that's because a lot of my stuff is pretty emotionally charged though, and pretty personal and like vulnerable and authentic. So it's hard for me to write that and have it be. I mean, if it was more stats, maybe I could, I guess. I don't know. I also don't post every day. I don't post if I don't feel like it. I don't force it.
Well,
You know?
I could tell you from experience, I have done the like pre-planned posts, if you will, and I've done the like, I'm feeling this, let me post it live. And every single time the latter outperforms the former.
I think so too.
I mean, infinitely. And I think really previous, you had such great advice. Like, go through your photo apps, see what you care about, right? Like, write about
Yeah.
these things that you care about. And I think you mentioned this earlier, and I wanted to ask about it, but I forgot. Just like how much being on LinkedIn can sharpen your writing skills and your
Oh my
communication
gosh.
skills, and how to express yourself rather than kind of
Yes.
keeping all this in. One thing that I say all the time, so for many people, this won't be the first time hearing me say it. I started for maybe the first 2 years just purely leaving comments. And I think that
Yes.
is the best way
Oh,
to kind of like
absolutely.
walk into the pool versus like jumping into the deep end, if you will.
Absolutely.
And then you drop a comment and maybe three people drop a like on it, right? You
Yes.
drop a comment and maybe seven people drop a like or a react on it. And then you're kind of like, ooh, okay, this is something that I can
Absolutely.
continue talking about. So I think comments are a great way to almost like test POVs
Oh,
that
for
you
sure.
have, test topics.
Build
Anyways,
confidence just to feel
yes.
like you have something to say that other people are listening to. And
What
like,
what advice would you give to folks that are trying to maybe like take their first steps, or maybe even more specifically on the comments side of things? Because
yeah, on
everyone's
the,
so quick to do the like, oh, don't say nice one, right? And stuff like that. And it
yeah.
almost like prevents people from doing it. What kind of advice would you give to those folks to just get in and get started?
If you need to say great post to get started, then say great post to get started. Do whatever you
Totally
have to
agree.
do to get
Totally
started.
agree.
It's totally fine. Like you said, pinky toe in first, like it's okay. But I do think that if you, like I kind of said at the beginning, when I decided to ditch the whole car dealer thing and just find people I like find people that were saying interesting things that I was drawn to,
Yep.
I wanted to comment. I had things to say. And so that kind of changed the game for me. Turns out I really like writers. And so I have like lots of writers, and there's also lots of writers and ghostwriters on LinkedIn. But I have a lot of like book people in my community, writers, editors, ghostwriters, book coaches, things like that. It is so helpful to have those people in your community because I have learned so much from them about James Gibbons is a friend of mine who owns an advertising agency, and he's a copywriter, content writer, all kinds of things. And he is artistic, the man. I mean, it's like I learned so much just from having those people in my community.
Yeah.
And it does make a big difference. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm going to start posting every day, but it does make a big difference. And just learning from those people, like watching those people and learning from them and starting to comment on them. And that's part of the reason that I take a lot of care in like commenting back on people who have commented on my own posts is because when people commented back to me, it gave me confidence in what I was saying,
Right.
and when thoughtful comments came back and like when people reached out to me in my DMs after and were like, hey, that was a really great comment. Thank you for, engaging with my post. That is so thoughtful. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I do have it. And I have seen that in other people with me, and so that feels good to like give that back and be like, no, what you're saying is super valid. Like, keep it going.
Love it. Love
That's
it.
really great.
I want to just shift gears for a quick second. I feel
Yeah.
like there's just like I didn't even talk to you about this pre-show. Don't worry, it's not going to be bad, but
Oh
you're
God.
gonna prepare
Okay.
for this. I feel like we should do like 5, 10 second breath work because I have like one more question for you, but I feel like
Okay.
it would be so unique and a real like missed opportunity to not do so. You want to do that?
Yeah, love
All right,
it.
I'm following your lead.
Okay. Get nice and comfortable. And I got my meditation chair, so I got to hold my thing around here. Okay. And get your hands on your knees or wherever they're comfortable. Let your eyes close. Just let your breath be normal. Let your face relax. Unclench your jaw. Let your tongue fall away from the top of your mouth. Roll your shoulders up by your ears. Roll them back. Open up your heart space. We'll take one big deep breath together, but first empty your lungs and exhale all of it out. Inhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it at the top. And then exhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let your breathing come back. Open your eyes when you're ready. Come back to the shared space. Isn't
That was
it
wonderful.
good? It just
That was wonderful.
fucking feels better.
It really does. I hope everyone's still listening in, followed through with that. That was wonderful, and that was a first ever. Like I said earlier, want to keep
Yay.
things unpredictable. However, I'm going to follow something unpredictable with something very predictable, which is what I ask everybody. What's the big takeaway for folks that are still listening in?
I mean, after that breath, it's definitely meditate. um, but no, the big takeaway is just get started and find somebody, find a group, find a community that helps you build your confidence, that is supportive, that helps you build your confidence in your engaging. So not even posting, just engaging.
Yeah.
Find the community that you want to engage with and that you want to participate in without looking for prospects, without looking for new clients. Just look for good humans that you would be friends with in real life and then be friends with them on this platform. And I promise it will lead to 5 dot meetings or just great coffee chats or like, who knows, I mean, Knock Tran, she has been to my house when she came to the convention here in Indianapolis. She came over and hung out at my house. I made fried morels for her and she met my daughter. There you go. So it's real life. And I mean, it's so fun. And if you don't see the fun in it and you don't take it a little bit lightly, if you take it too seriously and
Yeah.
it's all business, then it's never going to be fun. And having the fun in it is what makes it positive and what makes everybody else want to participate and engage with you.
Fantastic advice, timeless advice. Ashley, why don't you plug something with the audience before we jump? Where could people find you? What are you working
Yeah.
on for Sales Spark? Walk us through it.
Yeah. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn anytime. SalesSpark does not have a website yet. It is in very early stages. But I am doing workshops, full day, half day workshops for small sales teams. And also, I don't call them a cohort necessarily, but just for small sales teams in small companies I personally think anybody who's a revenue producing position should have a presence of some sort on LinkedIn. And I think that there are a lot of companies that don't see the importance in that quite yet, but they're getting there. And so those are the people I'm looking for is the sales managers and the companies who are ready to start to promote their revenue producers and help them learn how to engage and give them coaching and support in engaging on LinkedIn so that they can learn to find their prospects, learn to find their clients, and learn to build their thought leadership and their presence on a business platform.
You heard it here first, folks. Business leaders, sales leaders, find Ashley on LinkedIn. If you're looking to connect with Ashley on LinkedIn and you're on mobile watching video, her last name is spelled Cuellar. Find her on LinkedIn. Go check out Sales Spark. Ashley, this has been absolutely fantastic. First ever breath work on the podcast. And I think
Yay!
you put on like a total clinic today
I
on
love
just
that. Alex,
value.
thank you for having me. This was so much fun. And I love that you surprised me with making me do breath work because it's so good. And I just said to somebody yesterday, I have been doing meditation and yoga for long enough, consistently enough now that I catch myself breathing to calm down in situations when without knowing it. Like it just happens now. Like I'm like, okay, take a breath. So that's my other takeaway. Everybody go meditate.
And go if I would also challenge folks still listening, go try a yin yoga class.
Oh, do
That is
it.
a really good yin or restore yoga, sorry, is a great intro to yoga and breath work, and it's pretty much
Absolutely.
basically a glorified stretching class. So there's no kind of like yoga stigma or like I don't know how to do the moves, whatever the case may be. If you do something for Ashley, let it be that, or check out Sales Spark as well. Ashley,
For
this has been
sure.
absolutely fantastic. Sales Stories in Real Life, fam. We will see you next week. Cheers.
Bye.